Okay, good afternoon. We're here to talk about cybersecurity today. I'm Jacob Fenley with Cochrane Supply. I'm the Director of Technical Service at Cochrane Supply. Scott talked about this a little bit yesterday, but in December of last year, Cochrane Supply had a cybersecurity attack, like 85% of other companies did last year. And as Director of Technical Services, I heard about it really loud at midnight on Christmas. So I knew exactly when it happened. We did all we could to quarantine, make changes, and it was a big learning experience for us as a company. You know, we've been talking about this for years, and it's growing and changing at a rate that's difficult for a lot of people to keep up, especially in our industry. We're trying to keep up with heat pump technology and controller technology, and now on top of this all, we're trying to keep up with cybersecurity. So we've got a great panel today. I'm going to try to keep it open for a lot of questions and keep it really conversational. I'm going to do an introduction question with everyone, and then we're going to go through, a few more ideas and project kind of process that I want to kind of line it out that way. So our representatives today, we've got everything from a building owner representative to the integrator, the design, and cybersecurity product vendor and specialist. So whoever you are in this room, you should be represented by one of those people. And if you have any cybersecurity questions, please raise your hand at any time after the introductions, and we'll try to grab you and give you somebody to answer those. For introductions, I want to do a kickoff with our owner's representative, which is Thano. Thano oversees, a large real estate portfolio. He's going to do an introduction and tell us more about it. But the one question I want him to answer when he gets done with his introduction is, in the last 5 years, what's been the biggest change in the cybersecurity planning and stance?
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that. I like to affectionately refer to myself as the dumbest person on this panel because I manage a team that oversees technology in the built environment. So we're very diverse in the skill set that we have on the team. So I'll tell you a little bit about QuadReal very briefly. Manage nearly 100 billion Canadian in assets, everything from office, industrial, residential, retail, self-storage, data centers, life sciences, student housing, manufactured housing, and any other type of asset class that there is out there. Completely vertically integrated in Canada, investment development, asset management, and property management, and are growing our footprint through operating companies in the US, in the UK, and directly asset managing various asset classes in other regions as well. My team is responsible for all the technology that we put in the building. Everything from connectivity, networks, the way that our buildings systems connect, the way that our buildings connect, the way that our people get services from the building, the systems themselves, BAS, lighting, CCTV access control, parking, elevators, IoT sensors, everything under the sun, you name it. We're also responsible for our customer experience. So we've homegrown some applications that we utilize for tenant engagement and the call center. So jack of all trades, master of none, that's me. Don't ask me any follow-up questions because I won't be able to answer them. So
that's fine. What about?
In the last 5 years, look, it's an easy one. It's a bit of a softball because the last 5 years has seen an incredible growth of the requirement of cybersecurity in the OT space, where no one cared before. For the longest time, no one cared. Everybody let the various system vendors do their own thing, connect things the way that they wanted to, manage things the way that they wanted to, use whatever infrastructure they wanted to, and off we went on our merry way, managing all of these systems in isolation, introduced the requirement for integration and interoperability to satisfy a number of operational use cases, whether that be operational efficiency, energy efficiency, just kind of cool customer experience type of use cases, you name it. And now you've created this attack surface that becomes very, very large. So for us, adapting and adopting to that, where the enterprise side of the business, our IT, our HR, and folks have done a really good job on cybersecurity. We're a bit late to the game and a bit of the Wild West, and doing our best to catch up. So I would say that that's probably the biggest change I've seen in the last several years.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we're going to move on from the owner into the design space. So we've got Mike here, who's going to do a little introduction, and then my question for him is, Governance and accountability. You're taking what the owner is looking for, you're putting it into the specifications. What does governance and accountability kind of look like today?
So that's a good question.
Yep.
So I'm Mike MacMahon with the firm Newcomb and Boyd. We're consultants and consulting engineers based out of Atlanta. And I have an IT background. And so I was in healthcare for quite a number of years, focusing on a national healthcare organization. My biggest problem that I had to face at the time was medical stuff, right? I'd get all these, carts and things for anesthesia that would show up using outdated protocols, but they're FDA certified and they need network connectivity so you could hook it up to a patient and watch them while they're under the OR, right? And I'm like, you're not touching this network. So I had to figure out smart ways to go about and deal with stuff like that. And then I transitioned into the built environment, and I saw technologies that were being introduced over the course of the evolution of the built world that cyber pertained to IT, right? Like information technology, devices that traded information back and forth, like your AHR systems and stuff. But now as the evolution of technology has progressed in the OT space, they're doing the same thing, right? So they're producing data, they're controlling the physical world. And so the need for cyber has evolved and it's become incredibly prevalent. My focus as a consultant is to drive and get people to understand that cyber is a requirement. So if you're going to put this technology in your building, you're going to want to use the data that they produce to get and make information from it. Information creates action, which you can take as a building or property owner to understand your space utilization, how your buildings are operating, your energy utilization, where are your biggest piggies in your portfolio, how do I get down to that level? So governance comes into a huge role here because while what I did was I introduced basic cyber hygiene specification language. So I couldn't dictate anything that the owner was responsible for because they never see the specifications. So if I had a Div 23 or a Div 25 for integrated automation, I would put in things like change your default password, assign the appropriate privilege level to an account, get rid of the generic accounts, use an individual account on your system hardware. That's the minimum requirement that you need. What I see in large organizations, the governance piece comes into play is now we build frameworks. So I'm part of buildingcybersecurity.org, the Real Estate Cybersecurity Consortium. And the BCS bunch, we put together and married a couple of frameworks. One from NIST, which is leveraging 882R3. I love all these numbers.
Have you guys read that? 882R3?
82R3, yeah.
Really popular one.
It's a great read. Read it right before you go to bed. It's awesome. And then there's another one, the IEC 62443. And they outline a methodology, if you will. And it ties the service provider, the manufacturer, and the owner. And the ultimate responsibility for everything that happens at a facility is the owner's fault. Because the owner employs everybody else. So if there is a breach, if there is an episode, if there's an incident, whether it's coming from the external or somebody just tripped on a plug and took down a bunch of stuff, if you don't have the proper stuff in place to manage that, and you don't have the intent behind it, that's where the vulnerability comes in. So really we're talking about consequence management when we talk about governance. And that's a key piece that I try to get everybody to understand is what is your role at this point? What are you responsible for? What is this other person responsible for? I call it who's who in the zoo and what do you do? And I make it relatable to people so that they understand cybersecurity isn't just a concept, it's a practical journey. It's a life cycle. It needs to be managed just like all your equipment. It's not a race. There's no end to it. Once you put it in, you have to maintain it.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna go next to the integrator. So Josh, I want you to do a quick introduction, but also I want you to think, from my perspective, standing up here at AHR, it sounds like the owner knows what they want. They just told Mike, Mike wrote it down. Where does that fall apart, and does it?
That's a good one. Josh Redding from Sunbelt Controls. We're systems integrator, headquartered in California, but we're all over the West Coast. I guess a little about me. I've been doing this since 1990. We didn't have a whole lot of cyber back then, so it was a little easier. But yeah, to answer your question, where it falls down is exactly what your question was, which is between the developer and the architects and the engineers, and then it gets to us as the integrators, and we like to believe that they're on the same page, but a lot of times one group doesn't know what the next group's doing, and then somewhere in the middle of all that, we get involved with the IT people who are in the building, if they have one. And a lot of times they have different ideas and they don't want anything to do with the OT networks, which is okay for us if we can help it. We try to make that air gapped and keep it as separated as we can. And Aaron probably doesn't like it because we're not buying his stuff to do it. But but really it falls down because of communication between the groups and because disciplines of how we purchase in a building developers and owners, and they go through their traditional mechanical, electrical, plumbing, what have you. So a lot of disparate systems come from those different groups, and if it's not well coordinated at Mike's level from the engineering side, we get allege something that can talk to something, and we get it and we go, how does this communicate? Oh, we didn't buy that version because it cost $10 more. So it is a little challenging. What we try to do is bring those people back together and get them on the same page. It's not always that easy because when we're the systems integrator, we're a lot of times the two-step away from the GC who's working for the architect or the owner, and it makes it difficult. But
I want to add to that because I think it's relevant. Actually, just first show of hands. Is anyone here an owner-operator on the real estate side? Like one or two? Integrators? Manufacturers of some sort? All right. Is anyone part of the REC, the Real Estate Cyber Consortium? If you do any work, there's one. If you do any work in real estate, I would highly recommend you go to reccinc.org, not-for-profit organization that many of us are members of, driving forward cybersecurity practices and learnings and trainings for anything that's a building. My CEO likes to say, we deal in anything that a built environment that commerce is executed in. So the entire construction and retrofit methodology is broken for cybersecurity. As an owner, we've done our darndest to ensure that we can fill those gaps, but it's exactly right. Procurement's broken. There's a number of things that are broken. So what we've tried to do, we've written our own divisional specifications, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, all the things that would connect. We've hired mechanical and electrical and engineers and AV specialists and system specialists and security specialists to oversee the program. And we've broken up the procurement process, which is hard because typical construction programs and all these stakeholders are disincentivized to work together. So what we're trying to do is bridge those gaps by buying controls directly and tendering it directly so we can tell the folks exactly what we want, and then we can slide them under mechanical after that for delivery, but at least we have line of sight into exactly what we're looking for. We do the same with security, we do the same with lighting, we do the same with all these systems. It's really the only way as an owner, and there's only a couple of us, but for those of you who serve real estate owners, operators, regardless of what vertical or what asset class they play in, you really need to encourage the owners to change the way that they're designing and procuring, because if you don't, forget about the building working, let alone cybersecurity. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really important point.
Yeah, Aaron, I'm going to get to you, but I want to keep going on this conversation for just a second. I'll let you talk at some point. But okay, if we have integrators in here and say they want to change this process in their market where they're trying to do what you just described. Mike, is there anything that you can recommend? Like, how do the specs change? What's that? How do we get to that point for these teams?
Yeah, right. Just point to Neeve. I think the thing is it's so disparate. And what we're really talking about is the transformation from something digital to the physical world. And it takes a village, and that village can become a circus. Why? Because there's no ringleader. There's no one entity that's overseeing all of it together. Most GCs don't care about technology. They just know they need to have their schedule. Like, when do you need something ready to go? The IT group, they get brought in enterprise environments, they get brought in way too early. I know that happened to me all the time in healthcare. I'm like, you're doing what? Call me when you figure it out, right? And then we get brought in at the very end, which is too late for everything, because then anybody runs into 10,000 stipulations that IT has. Why? Because cyber and InfoSec oversees IT, and they determine what IT does, and you're getting that on the back end rather than on the front end, right? So the key piece to this is to ask questions. That's what I tell everybody. In fact, in all of my spec work, I have an owner's workshop. When I meet with the architects and the owners, I'm like, what do you want to do about this? I ask them that question. I don't have anybody. Okay, now I know I have a direction, right? But if they have somebody and they have these stakeholders, it's my job to organize and orchestrate, at least at the beginning level, how and people should interact. That's why I call it who's who in the zoo and what do you do? So that when it comes down to an integrator, they have somebody to go to get an IP address because they're aware that there is an owner's network. There's awareness of who they have to talk to. And if I can get their requirements up front, I include them. Right, so that way I'm passing him along the food tray, and he's eating off the same plate, and we're all getting the same information. But there's also that circle back. So if they have questions in the field, you have to be open to be able to say, okay, this is how we're going to go about this again. This is how we're going to close this gap.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. The main thing that Mike said is ask questions, but you got to ask them early, meaning really early. So like, if you're in pre-con and you want it when all the players are involved, because as soon as you get into construction, half the group left, right? So now you're in construction, now you're dealing with people that just want to build it cheaper so they make more money, and they don't have the same interests that you might have had with the owner and the architects and having those early discussions. So when you do ask questions, just ask them often and early.
Perfect. I think there's probably a lot of other ways that the integrators struggle to start those conversations so early. I'm sure it's an uphill battle, but I know there's a lot of contractors, a lot of integrators like Sunbelt who kind of have the ear of some really big end users and some really big opportunities, and they're trusted. When that's the case, you guys are asked to provide products that could possibly fill some of these gaps. So I want to introduce Aaron so he can do a run through.
Aaron, what do you think?
This is a really, really overwhelming conversation, and maybe we should just leave. It's pretty depressing. It's almost like if there was a OT, cybersecurity, zero trust, and managed services solution out there that you could easily adopt and bring into your organization, there might be a shit ton of money for you to make out there. I'm here to tell you there is. There is. I'm Aaron Brondum. I lead channels in business and partnership here at Neeve. My background, personally, I've been in the business for more than 25 years. First half, 15 years, system integrator. So now I like to say I'm a recovering system integrator. I've been in the software space the last 10 years, 2 years here at Neeve, relaunching this product back into the market. But Neeve is a software company, and we create a zero trust OT managed service platform designed specifically for OT. It's designed for system integrators like yourself. What these three gentlemen described is a massive problem in the industry. Who's the trusted partner in every single building? Who's your go-to? Is it the elevator guy? Is it the lighting guy?
All of them all the time, all at once. Sometimes.
Or is it the Sunbelts of the world?
Yeah.
They get it done. They understand the networks. That's the opportunity. The opportunity for you as a system integrator is to transform your business today to run managed services. This happened in the IT world 15 years ago. What happened to all those companies that transformed into managed services and embraced them? Where are they at today?
They're still around.
What about the ones that didn't?
Gone.
You're at an inflection point. So that's a little bit about Neeve, company at a real basic level. It does the OT, it does the cybersecurity, provides zero trust remote access, so you can easily access all your systems remotely. It does edge application environment, cloud hosting, cloud application connectivity. You think about it, it can take care of everything that you need today, and you don't have to hire new people.
So it sounds like, in your pitch there, it sounded a little bit like one of your biggest issues is getting integrators to see themselves in that role. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's one of your biggest.
It is.
That's one of the biggest.
It is.
issues.
It's one of the biggest ones out there. Like, we'll throw out the term MSI. What's an MSI? Master Systems Integrator. What does that mean? You guys are all system integrators. You just have to decide, I'm going to be a master system integrator because I can integrate more than just HVAC controls, which you guys do all the time. Now I'm ready to tell you, you can be an MSI that also can do OT cybersecurity and take care of this mess for all these, these parties that are involved here, right? You can be that trusted provider. and don't shy away from the conversation. We all, and when I was an SI, oh crap, here we go. I got to talk to the IT team. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I dread it. It's awful. I sit in conversations today, partnered with system integrators, and I can't tell you how many times I've been across the table. IT teams at major universities, biotech companies, they look at me and go, where have you been? Where have you been? We hate this as much as you guys hate it. We hate trying to manage the OT with IT products.
And that's the key point, is the evolution of responsibility. I mentioned that IEC 6443. It's the service provider, it's the owner, and it's the manufacturer. There's liability across all three stages. So if you're installing stuff in a facility and you're not doing your job of securing it correctly, so I want to work from my van out in the parking lot, so I'm going to put a cell modem in a controlled offline environment. Now it's no longer offline, right? Now it's not air-gapped anymore. Oh, I got a BMS on a PC sitting underneath an engineer's desk, but I need weather data. So I'm going to order a cable modem and I'm going to plug that in. You're no longer air-gapped. You're no longer secured. So you're accessing this stuff. You're introducing risk into the environment. And my background is in pen testing and assessments. And that is the quickest and easiest way in for me, is to automatically go out and do a scan and find out, where are my points of entry? Okay, who's responsible for this? And I love it. If you go to like shodan.io, right, and I type in BACnet in a search, and it calls up every single place that it's cataloged across the universe that has BACnet running and exposed on the internet side of a cable modem. And it even has the companies of the system integrators that are responsible for managing this equipment. Oh, it's Distech. Oh, it's a Honeywell device. Oh, it's this. And it's maintained by the system integrator. And it's at a bank. It's at a school, right? It's frightening how this stuff is out there, because there's a lack of knowledge. There was no need for it before. Business is business. If there's a business need, the industry will change. A manufacturer will build cybersecurity into a product if it makes it more attractive than the other manufacturer's product, because this client wants to buy 10 million of them. System integrators need to be aware of that down the pipe. I met with a number of manufacturers over the years. They brag about all the cybersecurity they're building into their products, and I said, are you training your own installers on what this stuff does and what it does? And there's like dead silence on the phone. And these are like C-level people in these companies, right? So it's kind of like eye-opening to say, okay, how do I take responsibility? What is it that I can do? And that's what I love about your message there, is that in the environments that don't necessarily have IT, right, they're not readily available, you can step into that role, and there's things out there like Neeve that provide that for you, that you can have that value add. Now you are no longer a commodity installer. You have something extra of value that makes it worth to your client.
Yeah, to pile onto that,
Yeah, go ahead.
a little bit is, let's air gap, let's not put it on the network. Those days are over too. Where's all the processing? Where's all the advanced applications happening? In the cloud. In the cloud. So you have to be up to speed with it. You have to understand it. You can't throw your hands up and, Thano's going to come to you. You're going to do a job for QuadReal. He's like, awesome, great job on the BMS. Now I needed to talk to Code Labs. And you're going to go, okay, how do we do that? Whereas if you're a managed service provider, it's like, sure, no problem. I got that in my tool belt. Oh, you're doing a job for Sunbelt. I wanted to connect to Bueno in the cloud. Oh, I got that in my toolbox. Couple clicks away. You have the ability to do that. You can embrace it. You don't have to shy away from it, and you can be that trusted partner with them, because that's part of it as well.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Just from all the system integrators that are out there, I'm sure you know this, but we would recommend you don't go try to make all of your people cybersecurity experts. We have dedicated people that's their job within Sunbelt Controls, that they help our deployments throughout all of our installations, and so they're kind of a centralized group, but they're the experts. And if we get to one of our big customers and we're having a discussion, and Thano or somebody of that nature is beating us up because they're intelligent from their end, we bring those experts with us to make sure that when they start talking their IT jargon, that everyone knows what they're saying, right? So I guess my words of wisdom for those of you who are integrators is, don't expect every one of your guys to be a cyber guy, but you do need to find a solution to help your customers protect their data and protect, their environments. And we take some of that on ourselves as systems integrators, and most of it, again, is just communicating to the owner. You have this responsibility. You have a network that is available on the internet. We are securing it in this means. And after warranty, if you don't want this security anymore, we will take it out. But it is part of our everyday responsibility on every job we do to make sure that if we're gonna have remote connection, because every now and then we can still air gap for a while, but those people who want remote connections and remote services, we have to provide those cyber needs for the building, the OT network, the IT network, how they separate from each other, how they come together with each other as well. We don't always have the best solutions. Neeve has their solution as well. And so just know you don't try to make everyone an expert, I guess is my point. And, make sure you understand what you're doing as an integrator to protect your people and make sure that it's something you can stand behind. So I guess I'll knock Aaron for a minute. No offense, but we love Neeve. They're doing a lot of great things. And we have switched from using what you guys may have all seen down on the floor with all these different cybersecurity networks and things that are available, firewalls and what have you. And what we did is made a conscious decision from all of our customers asking, we want to know, our IT people want to know what this firewall is that you're putting in to secure our network. So we went out and got a Palo Alto network firewall. It's small, little, whatever, cost effective, but when we go talk to IT, everybody knows what it is. So they don't ask what it is. They don't, wonder what's the OT network, what's the IT network. We just talk to them just like regular IT, connections they have throughout their building. They're 100% comfortable with it. They can pen test it. They can, do secure connections on that end and open ports, give us, VPNs, whatever we need. And they're comfortable with our solution because they know it, right? Well, it's hard to find IT people that will do something they're not comfortable with or they've never heard of. And so we just kept fighting the fight, and we just stopped fighting the fight and kind of conformed to what they wanted and gave them what they were asking for. So
great. You kind of mentioned it, I'd say a couple of you mentioned it, talking about I think Mike and accountability, right? That's what I'm trying to kind of nail down. I think the biggest thing that prevents people from wanting to go start tomorrow saying, I'm an MSP, I can start managing your network, is the accountability piece. Now, I'm not sure if it's showing up in contracts on accountability. I'm not sure where that lies and where can our customers go see and understand that accountability piece. And this is for the whole panel.
So responsibility matrices, as boring as they are incredibly important in figuring out who's, the old racy chart. Try to keep it simple. But at the end of the day, I'm accountable and the owner's accountable. So for the few owners out there, this is on you. For the systems integrators, there's an opportunity for you when owners aren't as educated to step up. But the reality is, we have governance and policies and approaches and specifications so that we put the integrators in the appropriate lane. We segregate things like connectivity and infrastructure because it's not just the control side, it's everything else in the building that we need to connect. And we overlay various tools. We're working with Neeve on some stuff right now. But we've got protocols around firewalls and protocols around procedures around how we manage firewalls in our virtual machines. And we go to every manufacturer and ask them what their requirements are for compute. And we put it all on site, and that makes it easier to get into the cloud, but we don't want everything in the cloud because we lose connection to the cloud. We don't have the ability to manage the building, so it needs to be a hybrid. And then what do you do from disaster recovery and patching and simple things like that? So we work with a managed service provider that does just that. We work with integrators that do just that. There's opportunity, of course, to do both depending on who you are and how sophisticated you are. But ultimately, as an owner, we're responsible for everything because we can try to download risk through contracts, but ultimately, who's affected? Me, right?
So just to play on that, as the systems integrator in that approach, we wish all of our people were as intelligent as Thano, but it goes back to the communication. So what we do as a systems integrator is we make sure that we put pieces of paper in front of them to help the owner understand this is your network, this has vulnerability, and you need to secure it. If you'd like us to do it, we could help you. But if you'd like to do it on your own, just know it's yours.
Right. Absolutely.
That's the real message. It's mitigating liability and risk on both sides. You're helping them do it on their side, even if they're not aware they need to do it. But more importantly, you're protecting yourself because ultimate responsibility is the owner and their lawyers, if you think about it. And so it goes all the way down the pipe. If there's an episode or an incident, that's one of the biggest things that I found, especially when I was early on doing pen testing of labs and utility buildings and different things like that. And I did find something, it was like, man, did that stuff roll downhill fast. And there was a lot of finger pointing. And I hated being in those rooms of 20, 30 different people all looking at each other like, oh shit.
Well, that's why the responsibility is so important, right? Because when you define who's responsible for what early on and you paper that, it makes those conversations a lot easier. I talk about simple things like and integrators can respect this. The network goes down and oftentimes the integrator comes in and goes, or there's an issue with a device, I should say, and everyone goes, oh, it's the network. It's the network's issue. Usually it's not. So we've tried to draw lines very, very hard in the sand such that we put responsibility on the folks that are responsible for maintaining their systems. Same thing goes for cybersecurity. And a lot of it is really low-hanging fruit. Like Mike talked about, change the passwords and simple governance and like the most simple of cyber training so people are aware of things to look for. You know, oftentimes, well, most often than not, when there's a breach, it's because somebody did something that they weren't supposed to do, and it created a vulnerability and an exposure that someone capitalized on, a bad actor capitalized on.
Yeah, and some of those simple things are just finding the right equipment. You know, Neeve obviously has theirs. There's others, but you know, things like boiler room Bob, so to speak. I'm sorry to all the Bobs in the room, but they plug in their computer to, you know, what they believe is the IT network, and they plug in their, you know, extension over to the OT network, and they just, you know, commingled everything because they want to get on and watch YouTube or do whatever they're doing in the boiler room, and they just contaminated the whole network, right? Well, if you have the right, you know, components and right hardware and right systems in place, they can't do that, right? Even if they do, some sort of an alert comes up, notifies you, but no traffic happens. So they plug in, it's just a dead port, and they can't do anything about it. Right.
Yeah, to add on to that, a lot of the system integrators that we're working with, they're coming to the table as this is what we do. This is what we've decided to do as a company. I'm not sure if it's going to meet exactly what you want, Mr. Owner, but I'm coming to you with something, as opposed to, okay, what's in the spec? How do I meet it? These are our best practices. This is what we're trying to do as a company. We're trying to be as secure as possible. They're talking about it, not just with the engineers and the owners, but internally at, safety meetings. Hey, let's talk about safety. Let's talk a little bit about cyber. This is why we do this. Hey, it's going to be real tempting for you to plug a cell modem into this site. We don't do that as an organization because it puts the entire company at risk. And we don't want to risk that. So continue on that conversations, but come to the table with a solution to start with.
Yeah, to Mike's point earlier is it all does flow downhill really quickly when something happens, especially when there's a cyber incident. I'm sure you guys have all heard about the old Target incident a while back, and they came through the BMS, and the BMS contractor obviously gets thrown under the mud and thrown under the bus into that whole equation. But it's really to that responsibility piece of you're gonna get drug in no matter what. But if you did diligence and just made sure you let the owner know this is their responsibility and this is what it is. And you as system integrators, what else we'd recommend, and we do this as a company as well, is when we connect to your network, we're always doing it securely, meaning my guys can't go from their laptop on the Wi-Fi at Las Vegas Convention Center and go directly into your site. They have to go through a secure means to then go to your site. And to do that just helps us with the responsibility of we're trying not to corrupt their network either. And we're doing that through a secure means just so we can let them know, like, this is our added security piece of how we connect to your site, right?
How many people in here know what zero trust is? Okay, great. So it's matching identities, right? I've got a human, I've got a device. I'm going to create a methodology to match and allow privileged access between the two. I like to think of it as zero trust. I don't trust anybody. Because there's a lot of trust in this industry. They're trusting that someone else has got the ball. Oh, I thought you had that. That's not my problem. I thought it was somebody else's problem. And the funny thing is, it's everybody's problem. So that's what I was saying. To a certain degree, there is some liability that everybody owns in this room. Whether you're a manufacturer, a consulting engineer. If I make a mistake and I miss something, there's liability, there's lawsuits. Things can get completely snowballed and out of control in the design world. Same thing with cybersecurity is no different. It's knowing what your role is and knowing what your liability is, and then trying to figure out a way to get around it.
Yeah, there's like zero trust gets thrown around a lot. I like to talk more about least privileged access more than zero trust. At the end of the day, we also need to run a business. So zero trust in its very traditional form can also mean, latency, can mean broken integrations, can mean challenges. So we talk more about least privilege access and ensuring that the right people have the right permissions and it's very, very tightly controlled. I mean, the reality is Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure use least privilege access for their microservices because if they didn't, nothing would work, right? So it's a balance of where these controls make the most sense and where they don't. Because at the end of the day, we're looking at an outcome. For me, it's ensuring that the room booking system can appropriately talk to the HVAC system so that we can condition a room and make sure that people are comfortable. It's that the operations people can get access to quality and real data such that they can make decisions on a complaint that's come in or on an issue that's been created, or so that we can feed it into a machine learning or an AI engine to spit out some sort of fault that's happening in the building before it's actually caused anything. If we get too, and sometimes, and I don't mean to bash zero trust, but sometimes it becomes theater, right? And not actually applicable. That's why folks like Aaron on my left here are important to really balance out how aggressive you get in these practices, because you need to right size it against the risk too. That's a big thing. It's like, oh yeah, so you have a sensor that might be vulnerable, but if you've segmented it and you've reduced the attack surface, who cares if somebody knows what temperature it is and they get in? Whoop-de-doo, right? But if they can use that to do more malicious things, that's when you're in trouble.
But just know, you've heard these guys say, make sure you change the default passwords and do those things, right? Yes, those are all good practices. The better practice is whomever you're working with is they already have, what they may be calling some zero trust. Could be two-factor, MFA that they're using some Active Directory or some means of controlling their employees and how they access everything in their building. Well, why wouldn't you just put that into the BMS? Because we can do the same thing. They use the same Active Directory, and when somebody leaves, then they're locked out of all of it, right? So you don't have to worry about the default passwords in these things. So there are some simple things like that you can do with your owners, and just making sure that, hey, why don't you do this through a secure means? And I'm sure they have one.
And if you want to make owners feel comfortable, we do what we call a product impact assessment, PIA, and a product impact review, PIR, that goes over privacy and it also goes over cybersecurity. explore SOC certification, SOC 2 Type 2, we look at it as the gold standard. There's obviously many ways you can get there, of course, but if you really want to if you're an integrator in the room and you want to make owners feel comfortable, getting that certification certainly puts you above the rest, because that's one of the first things we look at. There's a lot of other things that we look at. We were very, very diligent from a cybersecurity perspective on the OT side, as we have been on the enterprise side for years. So.
Yeah, I think the easy way to, how do you start a conversation like that is with consequence. At least that's what I do. I just recently met with a chief security officer of a very large healthcare organization, 32 hospitals in their organization. And we talk about criticality. So not everything is mission critical, right? Certain level of operations, if we were to lose a CRE, commercial real estate, 40-floor building, depending on the systems, that could be compromised because they have a tendency to tie it all together. So if I get into the elevator system or I get into the lighting control system, I can now get into the HVAC system. But if you talk about critical utilities, and healthcare is obviously one of them. In the event of any major disaster, healthcare is the first thing that people turn to, right? So that could, in theory, be part of a large attack. So when I was talking to this chief security officer who's responsible for IT and physical security, I gave him a scenario. I said, I'm going to sit in your parking lot for a week. I'm going to watch the trucks that roll up in the back and see whose vans show up, because that tells me the type of equipment you have operating in your building. I'm going to profile. I'm going to look at the people that are walking in and out of your building in those vans. That's going to give me an idea of what that scenario looks like. Now I'm going to go and do a little research on when this hospital, how long it's been around, because this equipment lasts for 20 years, so it probably hasn't been touched in 20 years. So I know there's probably a list of vulnerabilities that are known for that equipment that are controlling your lights and your HVAC systems and your BAS. And then I'm going to go to the county and I'm going to get maps. I'm going to figure out where stuff is, and I'm going to see where their computer rooms are, because I can look at a map and tell all that stuff. I can look at a here map just walking around and tell that. Now I'm going to find a digital point of entry. And I've got a little USB drive that I can plug into any computer that's sitting on any nursing station and run a root shell to it that is now going to explore the network and look for all that stuff. Great, you've done a little bit of segmentation, so now I can't see it from that side. But what I can do is see it from the facility side. So I'm going to look for an open port and plug in another device that has a little RJ45 on it and a mini computer, and I'm going to self-power itself because it's battery operated, and now I'm in the OT space. And I'm
or just drop the USB in the
drop the USB.
And Bobby's, watch who picks it up and plugs it into their computer.
Bobby's first year birthday pics. Who doesn't want Bobby to get their pics back? They're going to plug it into they're going to do it for me. They're just going to plug it into their computer to see who Bobby's family is, and they can get back the pics. But once I'm in the network and I've connected a remote shell back out to a cloud instance that I have, I explore. I sit like a spider in a web, and I explore the network and I see what's out there. Oh, there's this system. Oh, there's this system. Okay, who's the manufacturer? Let me look up the default credentials. That's why I say that's really important, because I can go online and search the default credentials for about any device in 2 seconds. Now I'm going to shut down the air handling units. I'm going to shut down all your lighting while you have an open heart surgery going on in one of your ORs.
So on that's
a consequential conversation, right? Like that's what like really resonates with people when you can tie that together.
Go ahead.
I was
go
for it.
You probably have something to say too.
No, well, I do.
We had a bunch of questions that were supposed to be asked. I don't think we asked any of them.
Yeah, no.
We got like 15 left.
Yeah. Okay, so there
Want to go to the audience?
Yeah, I was going to at 15. I did want to ask one more thing about just about cloud. I got said a couple of times.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned hybrid. I wanted kind of your whole idea on anything with going to the cloud, not going to a cloud, any kind of effect on cybersecurity, what that looks like, and why you said hybrid was a good option.
Yeah, well, listen, hybrid from an operational perspective. So should we put everything in the cloud? No, that's silly, and could be very expensive depending on what data you're pushing up there. So for example, the video feeds and things of that nature start to cost a lot of money. So be selective and strategic about what's going into the cloud, and also maintain an on-prem environment so that you can, from a cybersecurity perspective, if you need to isolate the building because there's an attack, you can still manage the infrastructure in the asset, whether that be the BMS, the elevators, the lighting control system, access, CCTV, et cetera. You need to have that flexibility. So if I can plug some folks, work with, we talked about Code Labs, work with them, work with our friends at Neeve, work with our systems integrators, and work with companies like Armis that are doing digital device discovery and asset management, work with integrators or network providers like Andorix. These are the folks that are really going to help you pull all these things together. And if your integrator's in the room, you create partnerships. You don't have to do everything yourself. There's a lot of people that can do things much better than you can, just as you can do lots of things much better than they can. Everybody has their lane. I'm looking as an owner for very distinct lanes. As said, I might be a little unique in the industry. But if you can come to an owner that's not terribly educated with a little bit of a consortium too, and say, these folks can do this and we can do this and we can cover everything for you, Mike can design it, and everybody's got their lanes, and actually here's the roles and responsibilities, so you don't need to think. There's a lot of folks that would probably take that and be very happy about that.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience. So you should be represented here, integrator, owner. Any questions at all?
He's gonna bring you a mic.
Yeah, sorry, there's Mike coming up.
If you could just say your name and who you are.
My name's Chad Ketcher. I'm with Preferred Controls and Integration, Tulsa, Oklahoma. My question was going to be for Josh, because he mentioned he doesn't buy Aaron's stuff. Now, he answered that.
I buy stuff from
He's got
Aaron.
a little bit of it, and some of his big customers use our stuff.
Okay, I was going to say, so he answered that. So do you want to rebuttal that? Why he should, or why we should? For
full credit, Josh and team are well ahead of the curve, and they started this a long time ago. They're innovators at Sunbelt. They took it on themselves. They saw a need. Josh made a business decision. We need to do this to take care of our customers, take care of our organization. And we owe Josh a lot of credit, because what he's done, putting all the pieces together, we tried to put it into one package to make it easy.
Thank you.
Justify. He made the business case for it.
Neeve is doing the best job from that regard, just so you know. But we've been doing this for 9 years, just to give you perspective.
So part of it too is your answer. The client itself, you might have had some problems getting them to approve the use of new technology, right? So that's always a struggle that we run into too. I've got a client right now, they wanted to change control systems, and it's going to take their IT department 9 to 12 months to test and approve it. The project kicks off in 6 months. The manufacturer is deprecating the serial connection. They're going IP, and they're like, well, we got to test it. I'm like, well, then you better get started, if they didn't approve Neeve, then you got to go with Palo Alto, because you're giving them something that they're comfortable with and that they know.
Other questions?
At the back.
I got a question.
No, you can't ask.
I can. All right. So you guys have given us some great advice on how to look at cybersecurity from a planning and liability and architecture standpoint. My question to the panel is what is the real threat level to the BAS in the cybersecurity environment? Can each of you kind of speak to that as a DEFCON level of and I don't, not your opinion. You are all experts who work with multiple systems and end users. I want to know, based on your real experience, how many systems are actually getting hacked into, or how many times are you getting called by an end user because the system got compromised? Thank you.
God, I brought Neeve to the market, relaunched it back in the market 2 years ago, and I probably met with a couple hundred system integrators. Every single one, without exception, has been involved with a ransomware attack. Every single one.
Except us.
So what's your DEFCON level then? Aaron, what's your DEFCON level? Say 5's the worst ones.
The problem is they go away and they go, oh, what do I do? But then the other problem is, well, they're going to pay.
are they under attack?
They're going to pay me to fix it. They're going to pay me to fix it. That's a good contract.
Agreed, Aaron, but I'm going to go another level deeper. You mentioned the SIs, and they say that, they've been called because of cybersecurity, because the network they were on was compromised. Are you getting calls because the BAS system was compromised, or the network it was on was compromised? What is happening in the world today?
That's a fair question. A lot of it is the BAS network. They put a cradle point in with port forwarding. It's like a lot of that's pretty common.
That one's getting hit a lot?
Or they just do port forwarding on a regular network too. That gets hit a lot. I guess to get back to the default passwords, stop port forwarding, please. Everybody promise today you will not do any more port forwarding.
Other panelists in that?
So just from a risk or DEFCON perspective, it really depends on what the building is. Is the BAS that controls the party room in my residential building super critical if someone shuts it off and it gets really warm in there? It's a pain in the ass, but not really. Is it if we've got a bank data center on our 40th floor of one of our AAA office towers? Absolutely. So we run through all these scenarios and tabletop exercises 2 or 3 times a year to talk about what could happen specifically on the OT side. So I think for your question, what's important for folks to learn that are influencing customers or our customers, that they need to categorize their assets and what are their quote unquote crown jewels, for lack of a better term, and what are their, A, B, C, D properties from a risk perspective, and protect them accordingly, because broad strokes with respect to cybersecurity is pretty dumb and very expensive. So we're not doing that at all, but we are going to the nth degree where we realize that the risk profile is very high. So it is happening, and we are very aware, but we've done as much as we could, and we continue to do more to ensure that we protect ourselves where it makes the most sense and spend money strategically, because the purse isn't bottomless, so to speak. So we have to be very, very mindful of the way we approach things.
Yeah, I would answer your question that yes to all the above, meaning BMS networks are getting hacked all the time. How the network is structured and how it is put together is very important. A lot of people in our industry like to, run, for RS-485, MSTP, something of that nature. It's ironic, but if you bring the IP level all the way down to the edge, you can be so much more secure than having these naked items that are out there on some 485 that you don't even know what they're doing, because Mike can't pen test them. He can't, do anything with them. So
I can get into them, but you don't know that.
Yeah. But to answer your question, yeah, it happens all over. I mean, Mike brought up Shodan. All you system integrators, if you've never searched your own name in Shodan, you should do it because I'm sure you're in there if you've never done it. But things are exposed and things are out there. We've been doing this Scott, we've been doing this for 30 years, right? So we've got systems out there that are vulnerable because somebody put a cradle point on it, because somebody put a lease line they got from, the Verizon guys down the street, and they didn't realize they just opened it all up and that some guy just switched the BMS network over to their IT network, right? So just end on that. What we do today is we try to build an OT network the best we can, that IT doesn't know anything about it except we need one IP address. Right? And when we do that, we're isolating the OT network as much as we can from the IT. We need things from each other, right? If we have highly integrated systems, we may have more ports, more systems, more servers, but we try to do it as segregated as we can and utilize the ports that we do need, because everybody needs some time sync service, usually sits over on the IT side, NSP or whatever. We get that from secured connections and ports, but we get it through one connection. So if I got 1,000 devices, they're not all over the IT network, right? And how that architecture comes together is important. It's important for the building owner. It's important for you as the integrator, so that you're not making more vulnerabilities out there. And, I guess what I would tell all you integrators is, if you're doing port forwarding and you're buying cradle points, you should check yourself, because the owner is responsible, but they're going to blame you every time. So
it kind of gets back to Mike saying we trust everybody in this industry.
Too much trust.
Too much trust. So I may or may not have been in a federal courthouse in the last couple of years where there are problems with the chiller. The chiller kept tripping. So, hey, we need to solve this. Hey, the chiller manufacturer wants to get involved. They want to monitor the chiller. They want to see the data on it. Guess what happened? Cell modem got installed in the chiller plano on the same network that the courthouse network's on. Best intentions, It's just they didn't know any better. They didn't know any better.
Yeah, the BAS software, you talk about DEF CON level. From an assessment standpoint, that's the first place I go. Why? Because the server itself, the platform that the BAS software is probably Windows. No one's doing updates on it. No one's doing anything. I lay all my eggs there. Those eggs just wait to hatch. So when they say, oh, the network's compromised, I'm going to disconnect the network. Great. I'm going to wait for you to reconnect it. Why? Because I have a persistence. Because I have attacked the platform that the BAS lives on, and I'm going to do it again.
I think the reality is most systems have been compromised, and there's somebody in a lot of your systems. The best thing you can do is isolate it as best you can. That's just the reality. And then I just want to make one more comment about IT and OT. My group at QuadReal is now a significantly bigger infrastructure manager than the IT team is. So it's actually going the other way. IT and OT convergence is now IT converging into OT because IT is completely in the cloud. Who goes and plugs in anywhere at work? You go to Starbucks and you get on Wi-Fi. It's the exact same thing in our buildings. So in a lot of cases, unless we have a significant AV requirement or things of that nature, we extend the OT network and connectivity such that the site offices can connect because they have their inherent security protocols built within the IT side on the enterprise side. We're now the bigger infrastructure manager than IT is. So it's actually interesting how the tables have slightly turned there.
But just on that note, you can do OT Wi-Fi without being on the IT network as well, right?
Correct.
So.
Any other questions? I'm sure this has been riveting for all of you. Nobody laughed.
I appreciate everybody staying awake. Thank you. Most of you. Thank you.
Are you coming back to HR?
We're here for a reason, you guys. Don't be so hard on yourselves.
My name's Derek Ratliff. I'm in a college campus in Fort Worth. We have 4 or 5 generations of BAS, lighting control, fire alarm. What's the cross risk between those of, like, when I started, I did a risk check because they're like, well, you don't do the lighting control. I was like, all right, let me see how hard it is to get in. I started turning lights off and on for my cell phone. So, not hard. What's the risk to my system from somebody in a lighting control system as an owner where I have a defined segment of the infrastructure that I manage, and how can I escalate that and make awareness of that up the food chain internally?
Again, I think that your risk is really based on what the system could potentially affect and how impactful that would be to your business, or in your case to the college. I think that there's an opportunity to build a foundation of more secure connectivity without, depending on how old these systems are and depending on how disparate they are, building a foundation underneath them. Like we did 40 retrofits across our portfolio with passive optical networks, and a lot of the stuff had been there for a while, but we were just very, very mindful of what we had, ensured it passed all our security requirements, and then connected everything, overlaid the governance that was required in the cybersecurity tools on the network, and secured a bunch of disparate systems that were not exactly new. So, your risk is frankly what the opportunity is for a bad actor to affect your business, and your opportunity is to, depending on what those systems are, and if you don't need to replace them, is building a foundation of secure connectivity such that you can still satisfy the operational use cases that you're probably chasing, but doing that in a secure way.
And do you have labs? Yeah.
I know that.
Mission critical.
My risk is very high. I probably with a lot of people. I believe that helps with risk. But from a standpoint of, so years ago I was doing automation controls and security, and we sat around. How would you open every door in the building? And it was, well, start a fire or convince the fire system it was on fire, and all of a sudden all these relays start tripping and doors unlock.
Yeah.
And it was just like we were sitting around doing a brainstorming conversation of how would we break into that particular building.
So we call those tabletop exercises. It's where you design a scenario and you have people partake in it so that they can all understand the consequences and their roles. Yeah. That is a great use case for getting people together. Is game planning what those look like, if this and that. Because I'll tell you right now, we talk about the liability, the risk, what is the actual risk right now. If you don't have a backup plan, if you don't have a disaster recovery plan, that is your biggest risk right now. Because it's not when, it's or it's not if you get compromised, it's when you get compromised. What are you going to do about it? What if somebody got in, a bad actor who was really upset? I mean, this just happened out in the city of San Francisco. A network administrator for the entire city used a piece of software in a centralized platform to default the config of all of their networks all over the city. This included EMS, 911, fire, police, the whole thing, because he was upset. He sent out a command and wiped out the entire network and walked out of the room. Needless to say, he went to jail and it set a precedent for stuff. But what do you do in that scenario, right? Those are worthy conversations to have.
Invite your C-suite, invite the heads of departments, invite these people, not just facilities people, to the tabletop exercises. At ours, we have our head of communications, our head of legal, various other people within legal, HR, facilities people, everybody, tenant services, loads of different folks that you wouldn't normally consider as part of cybersecurity, but they need to understand what could happen. That's how you create awareness.
And you got thousands of students attending class every day. What happens if the building gets shut down accidentally or on purpose? What are you going to do?
I mean, we do have policies and plans in place for a lot of those scenarios already, and I don't have specific. I wrote down table discussions with those individuals, but I have like hallway conversations with our public safety officer.
You gotta, because nobody's gonna know what to do. The first one we did was a disaster.
And that's the common theme here, folks, is talk it out, have a conversation, raise awareness.
We are at time, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off so we can make sure that we can get everything cleaned up for the next one. But thank you to the panelists. I think this was a very good. I appreciate you guys hanging out for a minute if you have a second, just in case anybody has a question they didn't get a chance to ask. Coming up next at, let's see, 3:30? We've got... 3 o'clock, we've got innovative methods for retrofitting, and then at 4:30, how to build out an FM/PM schedule. So stick around. Thank you guys very much.